Welcome. Tonight, ensure your doors are locked, curtains tightly drawn, and that you are utterly alone. Because the file we're about to open doesn't concern the usual specters haunting shadows or deranged serial killers. No, this story speaks of impeccably dressed individuals working within the austere halls of government buildings. Men who wield ultimate power, ostensibly to protect us. Yet, in the hidden depths, they are the true architects of terror. Tonight, we journey into the labyrinth of the human mind, where the lines between reality and delusion dissolve, where memories can be obliterated, and free will becomes a mere forgotten luxury. Prepare to delve into the darkest chapter in the history of U.S. intelligence. Project MKUltra. The clock strikes 2:30 a.m. on October 28, 1953, at the Statler Hotel in New York City. While the city below pulsates with sleepless energy, the 13th floor hallway of the Statler lies eerily still. Inside room 1018A, note the ominous number, as if fate itself had scripted it. Two figures reside. One, deep in slumber, the other, awake and tormented. This man is Frank Olson, a distinguished 43-year-old bioweapons specialist for the U.S. Army's Chemical Corps at Fort Detrick, Maryland. He was a dedicated husband to Alice and a loving father to 3 young children, Eric, Lisa, and Niels. But tonight, Frank is utterly transformed. For days, he has been consumed by an overwhelming paranoia, confiding in his wife about a grave error at work, a mistake that haunted him like a shadow that refused to fade. He spoke of the chilling conviction that they were watching him, invisible eyes piercing through walls. He yearned to resign, to escape his classified world, to simply vanish into anonymity. He paced his dark hotel room, his face intermittently illuminated and grotesque by the flickering neon signs of the city below, gazing down at the desolate, abyss-like expanse of 7th Avenue, 13 stories down. A sudden, sharp noise shatters the silence, startling his roommate, Robert Lashbrook, a CIA officer posing as a colleague, awake. Lashbrook glances towards the window, the curtains wildly flapping in the cold night wind. The glass is shattered, jagged shards glinting like teeth in the moonlight. And Frank Olson is gone. From the 13th floor, he plummeted to the pavement below, his body crumpling on the cold concrete amid the indifferent hum of the city that never sleeps. He died instantly, his skull fractured, his secret silenced, or so it seemed. New York City police arrived swiftly at the scene, their flashlights cutting through the pre-dawn gloom. Their initial conclusion was delivered just as fast. Suicide due to depression. It was a tragic incident, yet seemingly unremarkable in a city of millions, and the case was promptly closed. Olson's family later received a sealed coffin, accompanied by an unsettling piece of advice from government officials. Never open it. Do not disturb the dead, they implied, as if peering inside might unleash something far worse than grief. But what they couldn't possibly know was that Frank's death was far from the end of his story. It was merely the shocking prelude to one of the most terrifying secrets of the 20th century. Frank Olson did not jump because of depression. Frank Olson jumped, or was made to jump, because of what was coursing through his veins at that very moment. A substance that twisted his mind into a nightmarish kaleidoscope. Just 9 days before his fatal plunge, Frank Olson and his colleagues from the Special Operations Division gathered for a clandestine meeting at a secluded, rustic cabin nestled in the misty woods of Deep Creek Lake, Maryland. It was meant to be a routine retreat, a chance to discuss their work on biological weapons and psychological warfare. They raised their glasses, ostensibly to toast with Cointreau liqueur. But Frank's drink contained something else entirely. A colorless, odorless, and tasteless liquid slipped in without his knowledge. a substance with the terrifying ability to warp reality, twisting heaven into hell within mere minutes. That substance was lysergic acid diethylamide, better known as LSD, and the individual who surreptitiously authorized the dosing of the entire group, including Olson, was none other than his own boss, the man at the helm of a top-secret project codenamed M4Y, Sidney Gottlieb. Why would he poison his own employee? Why was there such a pressing need to experiment with a powerful hallucinogen on unsuspecting colleagues? And what did Frank Olson witness during his final, horrifying delirium? Visions that drove him to confide in his family about a terrible mistake involving secret operations, perhaps even unethical experiments on human subjects. To truly grasp the depths of this enigma, we must journey back several more years, peeling away the layers of secrecy like skin from a rotting fruit. Back to a time when the greatest fears didn't originate from supernatural entities, but from an invisible, insidious enemy known as brainwashing. Welcome to Chapter 1. The Cold War's fear and the dark sorcery of the early 1950s. World War II had just concluded in 1945, its echoes of destruction still reverberating across scarred continents. Yet, peace remained elusive. A new kind of conflict had emerged. The Cold War, a shadowy standoff between the United States and the Soviet Union, where nuclear arsenals loomed like unspoken threats. The roar of battlefields in Europe was replaced by a new front, far more silent, yet infinitely more terrifying: the battlefield of the human mind. In 1950, as the Korean War flared up like a brushfire on the Korean peninsula, a strange phenomenon began to unfold, sending shockwaves through the corridors of power in Washington. American pilots, and even the most hardened Marines, captured as prisoners of war by North Korean and Chinese forces, inexplicably began appearing on enemy national television broadcasts. These men, once symbols of American resilience and patriotism, sat blank-faced before the cameras, calmly confessing to war crimes they never committed, bombing civilian targets using germ warfare, and praising the virtues of communism as if it were gospel. This baffling transformation, occurring within weeks of capture, sparked widespread panic in the U.S. intelligence community. There were no signs of physical torture, no visible bruises or broken bones on their bodies. How had these steadfast soldiers been turned so quickly? Journalist Edward Hunter, in his 1951 book Brainwashing in Red China, coined the term brainwashing, a direct translation of the Chinese phrase "xinao," meaning to wash the brain. It evoked images of minds being scrubbed clean, reprogrammed like faulty machines. CIA Director Alan Welsh Dulles, a patrician figure with a pipe perpetually clenched in his teeth, became convinced that the Soviets and Chinese had unlocked a secret method to break the human will, a psychological weapon more potent than any bomb. Dulles, who had witnessed the horrors of Nazi mind control experiments during his OSS days in World War II, feared America was falling behind in this invisible arms race. The battle for men's minds, he warned in a 1953 speech, is the most important battle of our time. To combat this perceived threat, Dulles decided the only way to defend against mind control was to master it first. On April 13, 1953, he approved Project MKUltra, a sprawling $25 million program, equivalent to over $300 million today, with 149 sub-projects spanning hypnosis, sensory deprivation, and chemical manipulation. Its insane goals included controlling human behavior through drugs and psychological techniques, creating fearless super spies who could withstand interrogation, developing programmed assassins who would kill on command and forget their deeds, and crafting a potent truth serum to extract secrets from enemies. To lead this morally ambiguous endeavor, Dulles selected Sidney Gottlieb, a seemingly benign club-footed chemist with a stutter and a penchant for folk dancing. Known internally as the CIA's Black Sorcerer or Dirty Tricks Master, Gottlieb was a genius willing to abandon all ethical limits in pursuit of national security. A pacifist by nature, he had avoided military service during World War II due to a heart condition, but his intellect made him a perfect fit for the shadows. Driven by a singular, chilling purpose, Gottlieb transcended conventional morality, viewing ethical boundaries as mere obstacles on his path to achieving his goals. He was unbound by conscience, a walking arsenal of deception. He carried with him a small, unassuming bag, yet it contained a deadly payload, vials filled with potent lethal poisons, including shellfish toxin and cyanide. He traversed the globe, a spectral assassin, ready to eliminate any target designated by his shadowy patrons. Rumors persist of his involvement in failed plots against Fidel Castro and Patrice Lumumba. When Alan Dulles bestowed upon Gottlieb the reins of Project MKUltra, he effectively handed him a carte blanche, a golden ticket of impunity. Gottlieb was granted unprecedented freedom, authorized to act without restraint, to spend limitless funds without congressional oversight, and, most critically, to operate entirely above the law, beyond any legal accountability. No paperwork, no traces, just results. Armed with this unparalleled authority, Gottlieb forged ahead with his audacious vision. His core belief was stark and brutal. To truly control the mind, one must first shatter it into fragments. He envisioned a metaphorical sledgehammer, a tool powerful enough to demolish the very foundations of human consciousness. Only after this destructive phase, he believed, could he meticulously rebuild the mind, shaping it entirely to his sinister design. He sought an agent that could utterly dismantle the intricate architecture of thought and perception, paving the way for a complete re-engineering of the human psyche. This wasn't about subtle influence. It was about total deconstruction and subsequent reconstruction. Inspired by reports of Soviet experiments with drugs like scopolamine and barbiturates, Gottlieb's search for this ultimate sledgehammer led him down an unexpected path. He experimented with various methods: electroshock therapy, hypnosis, isolation tanks, but none possessed the devastating power he craved. Then, his attention was drawn to a peculiar chemical compound recently discovered in Switzerland. This wasn't some ancient potion or a forgotten technique. It was a modern marvel, a synthetic enigma. It bore the cryptic designation lysergic acid diethylamide 25, or simply LSD 25. This substance promised to be the very tool he needed, a key not just to unlock the mind, but to utterly transform it. This marked the true beginning of what would become Chapter 2, The Key to Dreams. To truly grasp the profound significance of the substance Sidney Gottlieb was now wielding, we must journey back in time, a decade earlier. Our destination, April 16, 1943. The setting is Basel, Switzerland, within the pristine laboratories of the renowned Sandoz Pharmaceutical Company. Here, a brilliant and meticulous chemist named Albert Hofmann was deeply engrossed in his research. His focus was on ergot fungus, a parasitic growth found on rye grain that had caused historical outbreaks of St. Anthony's fire, a hallucinogenic poisoning in medieval Europe. Hofmann's objective was far from anything nefarious. He was diligently searching for new pharmaceutical applications, specifically aiming to synthesize compounds that could serve as cardiac stimulants, circulatory aids, and even treatments for migraines, all to benefit human health. It was during this routine yet groundbreaking work that a seemingly minor incident occurred, one that would irrevocably alter Hofmann's understanding of consciousness and ripple through history. Through a twist of fate, or perhaps sheer accident, Hofmann later speculated skin absorption. an infinitesimally small quantity of the compound he was handling, LSD-25, found its way onto his fingertips. Perhaps he rubbed his eyes, or inadvertently touched his mouth. Within mere minutes, an extraordinary and bewildering transformation began. The world, as Albert Hofmann knew it, began to collapse, only to be reborn in a kaleidoscopic explosion of sensation. This accidental contact unleashed an entirely new realm of perception, far beyond the confines of ordinary experience. Hofmann felt an overwhelming dizziness, a disorienting shift in his perception of reality. Colors intensified, shapes warped, and a restless anxiety gripped him. He sought permission to leave work early, citing illness. With wartime rationing making fuel scarce, he embarked on his journey home by bicycle. A simple commute that would soon become legendary, forever enshrined as Bicycle Day on April 19, 1943. Though the initial exposure was on the 16th, he intentionally dosed himself 3 days later to confirm. Even today, psychonauts worldwide commemorate this date, celebrating the birth of psychedelic exploration. As he pedaled his old bicycle through the streets of Basel, Hofmann's familiar surroundings transformed into a living, breathing canvas reminiscent of a Salvador Dali painting. Buildings seemed to liquefy, melting like wax under an unseen sun. Sounds morphed into vibrant visual spectacles. He witnessed the ringing of his bicycle bell fragmenting into intricate, pulsating circles of pure color. Time dilated, stretching minutes into eternities, and the ordinary became the extraordinary. Hofmann's terrifying visions eventually yielded to profound euphoria. He felt a strange joy, a sense of oneness with the universe, everything clear and beautiful in its interconnectedness. Upon reflection, he believed he'd found a spiritual tool, a key to heal deep psychological wounds, perhaps treating alcoholism, anxiety, or even schizophrenia. He sent his report to Sandoz's executives, hoping for its use in psychotherapy under controlled conditions. Sandoz began limited distribution to psychiatrists in the late 1940s, with promising results in treating trauma. However, this groundbreaking discovery soon caught the eye of Sidney Gottlieb and the CIA. In 1951, Gottlieb learned of LSD through intelligence reports on Swiss pharmaceuticals. By 1953, he saw not a cure for the ailing mind, but a weapon of psychological warfare. He imagined LSD for torture, breaking enemy agents by inducing paranoia, or even mass incapacitation by contaminating water supplies to drive entire cities insane. The idea of a truth drug that could loosen tongues or erase memories was too tempting to ignore. Gottlieb swiftly convinced the CIA to spend a colossal $240,000, about $3 million today, to buy the world's entire known supply of LSD from Sandoz, seeking a monopoly on madness. But how would it affect Americans under stress? The only way to know was experimentation. And chillingly, the first unwitting test subjects were CIA employees themselves. The initial phase of Project MKUltra unfolded like a reckless student party gone horribly wrong, as Gottlieb and his associates began their dangerous game of mixing LSD into everyday life. The insidious experiments infiltrated every aspect of daily life at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia. LSD was covertly slipped into morning coffee, mixed into party drinks at agency gatherings, and even sprayed into the very air through ventilation systems. A suffocating atmosphere of paranoia gripped the building. Staff members began to fear their own colleagues, meticulously inspecting their coffee cups before each sip, glancing around for any telltale snickers or knowing glances. The agency, meant to protect national secrets from foreign threats, was instead a breeding ground for internal terror, its own people becoming unwitting guinea pigs in a twisted psychological war waged from within. One agent, after being dosed, reportedly locked himself in a bathroom for hours, convinced his reflection was a Soviet spy. The consequences were catastrophic and absurd. Anecdotes from that period paint a disturbing picture. Some agents under the influence reportedly ran into the streets of Washington, D.C., attempting to climb the Washington Monument or cowering under desks, convinced the ceiling was collapsing upon them. Others experienced synesthesia, where sounds became colors, or felt their bodies dissolving into the ether. Gottlieb chillingly referred to these events as reality tests. He sought to understand how a secret agent would react to a sudden, unexpected poisoning by the enemy. Could they safeguard national secrets while hallucinating dragons dancing before their eyes or believing their hands were melting? The answer, unequivocally, was no. The resulting chaos was utterly uncontrollable, with productivity plummeting and trust eroding. Yet, the sheer uncontrollability of these tests, rather than deterring Gottlieb, ignited a chilling excitement within him. He recognized LSD's potent ability to strip an individual of all their defenses, rendering them utterly vulnerable and suggestible. This revelation spurred a terrifying decision: to drastically expand the scope of his experiments. He no longer wished to confine his trials to robust, highly trained agents who might resist or report the abuse. Instead, he sought new subjects, ordinary, often vulnerable individuals living on the fringes of society, people whose disappearance or descent into madness, he reasoned, would go unnoticed and uncared for by the wider world. Prostitutes, drug addicts, mental patients, prisoners. These were the disposable souls he targeted next. This dark ambition paved the way for a new, even more depraved chapter: Operation Midnight Climax. Tonight, we journey into the heart of this clandestine operation, to a specific address, 225 Chestnut Street in San Francisco, a nondescript building in the city's foggy Telegraph Hill neighborhood. Here, in a grim fusion of human vice and state-sponsored espionage, sex, drugs, and deception converged in an inhuman experiment. Aptly titled Chapter 3, Operation Midnight Climax, The Midnight Orgasm, which commenced in 1955 under Subproject 42 of MKUltra. Sidney Gottlieb concluded that the CIA required a field laboratory to observe how ordinary people would behave under the influence of powerful psychotropic drugs within complex social settings, particularly those involving sexual encounters and intoxication. The goal was to test LSD's potential for interrogation, seduction of assets, or discrediting enemies by inducing erratic behavior. For this morally bankrupt venture, Gottlieb deliberately eschewed the conventional white-coated scientists of his previous experiments. Instead, he sought out a man whose very essence epitomized the grit and ruthlessness required: George Hunter White. Imagine George White, a stark, unsettling contrast to Gottlieb himself. If Gottlieb was the intellectual, a vegetarian who practiced meditation and lived on a goat farm in Virginia, White was his polar opposite: a crude, bald, heavily alcoholic figure, rarely seen without a loaded pistol tucked away in his belt or a cigarette dangling from his lips. White was a veteran narcotics officer with the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, FBN, known for his brutal tactics. He once boasted of shooting a Japanese spy in the back during World War II. A dangerous man for a dangerous job, White was the perfect enforcer for Gottlieb's vision. The choice of George Hunter White underscored the profoundly disturbing nature of Operation Midnight Climax. On one side, Sidney Gottlieb, the ostensibly refined intellectual, quietly orchestrating unfathomable human experiments from the shadows. On the other, George White, the embodiment of brute force and moral decay, a man who reveled in vice with a history of sadistic interrogations. This juxtaposition of personalities, the detached scientist and the brutal enforcer, painted a stark picture of the CIA's willingness to delve into the darkest corners of human behavior, using any means and any man, no matter how unsavory, to achieve its objectives. White was given an unlimited budget. Hundreds of thousands of dollars funneled through the shell companies, and a singular stark command: set the traps. Operation Midnight Climax began with the acquisition of several anonymous safe houses, strategically located in the bustling cities of San Francisco and New York. These were not your typical government installations. They were urban lairs designed to blend into the seedy underbelly of city life. George White meticulously oversaw their transformation, eschewing sterile official decor for an atmosphere designed to disarm and entice. Each apartment became a seductive spider web, a lair adorned with provocative details. Walls showcased vibrant, sometimes erotic, paintings by artists like Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, evoking the decadence of Parisian brothels. Thick crimson velvet curtains draped the windows, casting the rooms in perpetual twilight. Dim nightlights flickered, creating a soft, alluring glow, while a well-stocked bar offered a tantalizing array of strong liquor: gin, whiskey, vodka, all laced with potential for doom. Every element conspired to create an illusion of luxury and illicit pleasure, a honey trap for the unwary. Yet the true ingenuity, or perhaps depravity, of these safe houses lay beyond their seductive decor. The most crucial feature was not the lavish furnishings, but the large mirrors strategically placed on the walls, often in bedrooms or living areas. To any unsuspecting guest, these appeared to be ordinary-looking glasses, reflecting their image back in flattering light. But behind the veneer, these were expertly installed two-way mirrors, a clandestine window into the unfolding drama. Behind these mirrors, in a cramped, airless room thick with the stale stench of cigarette smoke and cheap gin, sat George White and his team. In a grotesque twist, White often observed from the comfort of a portable toilet to endure long sessions, martini in hand, his eyes glued to the glass, finger poised above a hidden recording device, ensuring every moment was captured on film and audio for later analysis. The operational phase of Midnight Climax relied on an unconventional recruitment strategy. The CIA enlisted a most unusual group of operatives, perhaps the most unique in the history of intelligence, a network of prostitutes from San Francisco's red light districts. These women, paid handsomely, up to $100 per night, a fortune in the 1950s, were tasked with frequenting the vibrant, often shadowy bars and establishments of the Tenderloin or Greenwich Village. Their targets were lonely men, unsuspecting tourists seeking adventure, sailors on shore leave from the nearby ports, or married businessmen looking for a fleeting escape from their mundane lives. The objective was to charm, entice, and ultimately lure these men back to the secluded apartment at 225 Chestnut Street, the heart of White's deceptive trap, where the true experiment would begin. White even hired a magician to teach the women sleight-of-hand tricks for dosing drinks undetected. Once the unsuspecting prey was successfully ensnared within the opulent trap of the safe house, the carefully orchestrated performance intensified. The recruited women, playing their part with practiced ease, would offer their new companions a drink, perhaps a scotch on the rocks, a classic martini, or a smooth whiskey sour. What the guests did not know was that into each of these inviting libations, George White or his assistants, from their hidden vantage point behind the two-way mirror, had surreptitiously introduced a potent and pure dose of LSD, often 100 micrograms or more, enough to induce profound hallucinations. The moment the unwitting man took his first sip, the psychological experiment was set in motion. He was expecting a night of simple pleasure, perhaps intimacy and escape, but what awaited him was an abrupt, bewildering disintegration of his perception of reality. As the LSD took hold, typically within 30 minutes, the men found their reality shattering in disorienting fragments. The expectation of a fun, intimate evening gave way to a terrifying psychological ordeal. The paintings on the walls, once static art, now pulsed and shifted, their forms twisting into bizarre, fluid motions like living entities. Voices seemed to echo from empty spaces, whispering secrets or laughing maniacally from the very air around them. A primal fear, deep and inexplicable, began to coil within their guts, a terror born not of immediate danger, but of the mind's complete betrayal, paranoia that their companion was a spy, or that the room was closing in like a coffin. Some subjects became hypersexual, others aggressive or catatonic. And throughout this harrowing, hallucinatory journey, hidden behind the cold glass of the two-way mirror, George White and his CIA agents watched. They meticulously documented every twitch, every shriek, every sign of distress, sometimes sharing a cynical laugh over martinis, all in their chilling quest to understand the full, terrifying power of LSD for blackmail, interrogation, or behavioral control. The victims of Midnight Climax awoke the next morning in utter confusion, their heads pounding, memories fragmented like shattered glass. Convinced they were simply hungover from too much alcohol, haunted by nightmares, or losing their minds to guilt, they stumbled out into the daylight, unaware they had been poisoned by their own government. The shame and fear of exposure, many being married men or engaging in illicit activities, acted as the perfect shield for the CIA, ensuring silence. No police reports, no scandals. George White, orchestrating this sordid spectacle for nearly a decade until 1965, reveled in his dream job, documenting his grotesque pleasure in his diary. Where else could a red-blooded American boy lie back and have his eyes closed, doing it for Uncle Sam and enjoying it, paid to play with whores, drink good booze and watch men go mad? His entries, later declassified, reveal a man who saw himself as a patriot, but his actions were those of a voyeuristic sadist. Yet, for Sidney Gottlieb, these chaotic reports from the field weren't enough. While Operation Midnight Climax provided qualitative insights into LSD's effects on social and sexual behavior, he craved precise medical data, brainwave charts, controlled variables, and quantifiable results. The brothel had served its purpose as a proof of concept. It was time to move the experiments from bars and bedrooms to universities, from brothels to hospitals. Under the guise of legitimate medical research funds channeled through front organizations like the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology or the Geschichter Fund for Medical Research, Gottlieb began secretly financing leading psychiatrists and professors across North America. Psychiatric patients, prisoners, and even unsuspecting students would become the new, unwitting pawns in MKUltra's increasingly brutal game, shedding its darkly humorous facade to reveal its true, horrifying face. The program expanded to over 80 institutions, including Harvard, Stanford, and McGill University, with budgets ballooning unchecked. This chilling tale continues in Chapter 4, Human Guinea Pigs. Our journey takes us north of the border to Montreal, Canada, in 1957. Within the stately confines of a venerable old building on the slopes of Mount Royal resided a man revered as one of the most respected figures in global medicine. This was Dr. Ewan Cameron, a Scottish-born psychiatrist with a distinguished resume. His illustrious career included serving as president of the American Psychiatric Association in 1953, the Canadian Psychiatric Association, and later the World Psychiatric Association in 1961. He was a beacon of knowledge and authority, a leader in his field whose contributions to understanding schizophrenia and depression were celebrated worldwide. Cameron had even consulted on the Nuremberg trials, evaluating Nazi war criminals like Rudolf Hess for mental competency. But beneath this facade of respectability lay a darker ambition, one that would soon turn the dreams of healing into a nightmare of destruction. However, the enigmatic Sidney Gottlieb, a shadowy figure operating from CIA headquarters, held no regard for Cameron's esteemed titles or international acclaim. Gottlieb was drawn to Dr. Cameron for a far more sinister reason. Cameron harbored an audacious, almost insane ambition that no other psychiatrist dared to pursue publicly. Cameron believed the human brain was akin to a magnetic tape recorder. If the tape was flawed, leading to mental illness like depression or anxiety, the only solution was to wipe it clean entirely and record anew with positive messages. He christened this radical approach depatterning and psychic driving, concepts he developed in the early 1950s. The CIA, seeing potential for creating blank slate minds for reprogramming, perhaps turning captured spies or creating sleeper agents, clandestinely funneled over $500,000, about $5 million today, into Cameron's research through the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, a CIA front. This funding, disguised as grants for human behavior studies, enabled his disturbing vision without Canadian government knowledge. With this substantial funding, Dr. Cameron transformed the renowned Allen Memorial Institute, a psychiatric wing of McGill University's Royal Victoria Hospital, into something chillingly reminiscent of a miniature concentration camp, hidden behind the veneer of medical care. His patients were not spies or political prisoners. They were ordinary citizens seeking solace in treatment for everyday afflictions. A young housewife grappling with severe postpartum depression after childbirth, a college student battling mild anxiety from academic pressures, a war veteran with PTSD, these were the vulnerable individuals who walked through the Institute's doors between 1957 and 1964. They arrived with hope, trusting in Dr. Cameron's esteemed reputation for a cure. Instead, they were plunged into an unimaginable hell, becoming unwilling subjects in his horrifying experiments, their lives forever altered by the brutal reality of his treatment. Over 100 patients were subjected to these methods, many without informed consent. Dr. Cameron's healing process was a descent into a three-stage ordeal of unimaginable cruelty, often combined with LSD and other drugs like PCP or amphetamines to heighten effects. Stage 1 was ominously termed chemical sleep or sleep therapy. Patients were subjected to massive doses of incredibly potent tranquilizers, including thorazine, chlorpromazine, barbiturates like Seconal, and sometimes paralytics like Curare. This powerful cocktail induced an artificial coma, a state of profound unconsciousness that could last anywhere from 10 days to a staggering 3 months. Imagine drifting into sleep in the gentle bloom of spring, only to awaken to a landscape blanketed in winter snow, disoriented and frail. Your muscles, long deprived of movement, would have atrophied, leaving you weak and bedridden. Bed sores formed, incontinence was common, and basic functions like swallowing had to be relearned. This was merely the beginning of their torment, designed to soften the mind for erasure. The second stage, brainwashing by electroshock, was even more brutal. While patients remained in their disoriented, semi-conscious state from the chemical sleep, Cameron administered electroconvulsive therapy, or ECT, using a device called the Page-Russell machine. But this was no standard medical procedure, which typically involves 1 shock per session under anesthesia. He employed currents that were an astonishing 20 to 40 times the permissible strength, up to 150 volts, delivering these shocks 2 to 3 times every single day for an entire month, sometimes up to 75 treatments per patient. His objective was clear: total memory erasure. Cameron's twisted goal was to strip the patient's minds bare, reducing them to the state of an infant, an empty blank slate, devoid of personality, memories, or ego, ready for whatever reprogramming he envisioned. The pain and mental destruction were unfathomable, with patients convulsing violently, their bodies arching in agony as electricity surged through their brains. The horrific consequences of this extreme electroshock therapy were profoundly devastating. Many patients, upon regaining consciousness, had completely forgotten who they were. Their own identities, the names of their spouses and children, and even basic motor skills like how to walk or use a toilet were erased from their minds. They had lost their fundamental connection to the world, often forgetting their native language or how to speak coherently. Imagine being stripped of your very essence, forced to confront a world where everything, even your own name, was foreign and terrifying. These individuals were reduced to a state where they had to relearn the most basic functions of human existence, like infants in adult bodies, a testament to the catastrophic impact of Cameron's depraved experiments. Brain damage was permanent in many cases, leading to chronic amnesia, incontinence, and loss of emotional regulation. Then, Cameron initiated the final, most terrifying stage, Phase 3, psychic driving. Patients, now mentally infantilized, were strapped to beds or placed in sensory deprivation rooms, their heads encased in helmets or football helmets rigged with speakers. They were subjected to relentless auditory torture, forced to listen to repetitive audio loops, taped messages played thousands of times, for 16 hours a day, for weeks on end. Messages like, "You are a good wife and mother," "You must obey your doctor," or more insidious ones like, "People like you," were designed to overwrite their shattered minds with new behaviors. If they resisted, screamed, or fell asleep from exhaustion, Cameron would administer LSD to stimulate hallucinations and keep them awake, or curare, a South American arrow poison that paralyzed the body while leaving the mind fully conscious, trapped in a living nightmare, unable to move or escape the onslaught. The results were catastrophic. No one was cured of their original ailments. Instead, patients became empty shells, suffering profound amnesia, eternal confusion, and a debilitating fear of darkness or enclosed spaces. Val Orlikov, wife of Canadian Member of Parliament David Orlikow, arrived at the Institute in 1957 for mild depression and anxiety. She endured over 80 LSD doses, hundreds of electroshocks, and endless psychic driving sessions. She left with a brain so damaged she couldn't read or write her name for years, her personality fractured. Another victim, Linda McDonald, a 25-year-old mother of 5, sought help for postpartum fatigue in 1963. After 86 days in chemical sleep, 109 electroshocks, and psychic driving, she emerged with no memory of her life, unable to recognize her children or husband. She had to be retaught to eat, dress, and use the bathroom. This wasn't healing, it was systematic destruction, all funded by American taxpayers. The destructive reach of MKUltra wasn't confined to innocent patients. It inadvertently created genuine monsters, twisting vulnerable minds into something far darker. Take James Whitey Bulger, for instance. Before becoming Boston's most notorious mob boss, a ruthless killer responsible for at least 19 murders, extortion rackets, and a reign of terror that spanned decades, Bulger was a young inmate in 1957, serving time for bank robbery at the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Desperate for a reduced sentence, he volunteered for what was presented as a medical program testing a cure for schizophrenia, run by Dr. Carl Pfeiffer of Emory University, secretly funded by MKUltra's subproject 68. In reality, it was a brutal LSD experiment. For 18 grueling months, Bulger and other prisoners were injected daily with high doses of LSD, up to 150 micrograms, often combined with other hallucinogens. His chilling prison diary, later discovered and declassified, detailed horrifying nightmares that blurred the line between reality and delusion. I saw blood running down the walls, talking skulls mocking me. Felt like I was going insane every minute of every day. Bulger wrote of auditory hallucinations commanding him to violence, and a persistent paranoia that everyone was out to get him. He later claimed in interviews that the LSD annihilated his humanity, leaving behind a brutal, fearless beast, devoid of remorse or empathy. "It changed me," he said in a 2014 letter from prison. "I came out a different person, harder, colder." The project aimed to create a super soldier resistant to interrogation, but instead it terrifyingly succeeded in forging a supervillain, one who evaded the FBI for 16 years while on their most wanted list. Bulger's brother, a Massachusetts state senator, even lobbied for his early release, unaware of the experiments. But there was a second victim, a name even more haunting in its intellectual tragedy: Theodore Ted Kaczynski. A mathematical prodigy with an IQ of 1 to 67, Kaczynski entered Harvard University at just 16 in 1958. A shy, sensitive, and supremely intelligent young man from a working-class Chicago family, dreaming of academic pursuits. At Harvard, he participated in a psychological study led by Professor Henry A. Murray, a former OSS psychologist whose work was covertly funded by the CIA under MKUltra's subproject 1Share30. This was no benign survey. It was a stress test designed to push mental endurance to its limits, ostensibly to understand how individuals withstand psychological warfare. Week after week, for 3 years until 1962, 17-year-old Kaczynski was restrained in a brightly lit room, wired with electrodes to monitor heart rate and galvanic skin response. He was subjected to relentless personal insults, humiliation, and attacks on his deepest vulnerabilities: his beliefs, his family, his insecurities about social awkwardness. Murray's team had him write essays on his philosophy, only to mock them viciously in debates where he was outnumbered and belittled. His anguished reactions, tears, rage, despair, were recorded on film and replayed to him repeatedly, amplifying the trauma. This brutal experiment, involving 22 students but particularly intense for Kaczynski, fractured something deep within him, igniting an extreme hatred for science, technology, and government control. He later described it as the worst experience of my life, a catalyst for his anti-modernist ideology. After Harvard, Ted Kaczynski vanished into the wilderness of Montana in 1971, living in a remote 10x 12-foot cabin without electricity or running water. From this isolation, he began a 17-year bombing campaign, sending 16 deadly package bombs across America to universities, airlines, and tech executives, killing 3 and injuring 23. Known as the Unabomber, he demanded his 35,000-word manifesto, Industrial Society and Its Future, be published in 1995, railing against technology's erosion of human freedom. It's a bitter irony, the CIA, aiming for mind control to protect America from communist threats, inadvertently created one of its most dangerous domestic terrorists, a man whose bombs terrorized the nation until his capture in 1996. Kaczynski, now 83, remains in prison, his writings influencing eco-terrorists and anti-tech movements. But MKUltra's horrors extended beyond these high-profile cases. In other subprojects, prisoners at the Addiction Research Center in Lexington, Kentucky, were given LSD for 77 consecutive days, leading to suicides and permanent psychosis. At the California Medical Facility in Vacaville, inmates like Donald DeFries, later founder of the Symbionese Liberation Army, were dosed with hallucinogens in experiments on behavior modification. Even children weren't spared. In one documented case, Gottlieb approved testing on defective juveniles. The program's reach touched Native American communities, where LSD was tested on unwitting subjects in hospitals. These stories, pieced together from declassified documents, reveal a pattern of exploitation targeting the marginalized, racial minorities, the poor, the institutionalized, whose voices were easily silenced. But crimes inevitably come to an end, or at least are brought to light. By 1973, the specter of the Watergate scandal loomed over Washington like a gathering storm. President Richard Nixon's administration was collapsing under revelations of illegal wiretaps and break-ins, and intelligence agencies faced unprecedented scrutiny from Congress and the media. Feeling the heat, then CIA Director Richard Helms, a Dulles protege, issued a final chilling order to Sidney Gottlieb: destroy all traces of MK-Ultra from the face of the earth. Burn it all down. This marked the beginning of Chapter 5. The Incinerated Files, Truth from the Ashes. The Watergate storm was tearing Washington apart, with revelations of presidential abuses eroding public trust in government institutions. The CIA's clandestine operations, once hidden in shadow, were now exposed to the unforgiving glare of public and congressional inquiry, forcing a reckoning with the dark legacy of projects like MK-Ultra. Helms, anticipating subpoenas, understood the grave danger. He knew Congress and the press would soon uncover the agency's deepest secrets, none darker than MK-Ultra's human experiments. In December 1974, the New York Times published an exposé by Seymour Hersh on CIA domestic spying, hinting at mind control programs. Panicked, Helms called Sidney Gottlieb, delivering a chilling directive. "Sidney, clean it all up, everything." An aging Gottlieb, now in his mid-50s, drove to a remote archive facility in Warrenton, Virginia, personally overseeing the methodical destruction. Thousands of boxes filled with medical records, experimental reports, victim testimonies, and damning evidence were fed into industrial shredders and incinerators. Victims' names turned to ash. Deadly formulas vanished in flames, crimes against humanity erased as if they never existed. Over 150,000 pages were destroyed, including details of operations in Europe and Asia. Gottlieb believed he had buried MK-Ultra forever, retiring in 1973 to a quiet life on his farm, where he practiced yoga and raised goats, taking his dark secrets to the grave in 1999. But history has a cruel sense of humor. In 1977, during a routine Freedom of Information Act (FOIA) request by journalist John Marks, a CIA clerk uncovered 7 forgotten boxes in an old financial records archive at the agency's records center. Gottlieb had destroyed the operational files, but overlooked the meticulous invoices, records of every single expense, from lab rats and LSD purchases to payments for prostitutes and hospital grants. These 20,000 pages of bureaucratic paperwork, including checks signed to universities and doctors, shattered the silence. The truth exploded onto the public stage, triggering the Senate's Church Committee investigation in 1975, chaired by Senator Frank Church and the Rockefeller Commission. America reeled as the full horror of its government's actions was exposed through televised hearings, tales of drugged citizens, shattered minds, and unchecked power. Frank Olson's family finally learned the truth. He hadn't committed suicide out of depression, but was dosed with LSD at the Deep Creek Lake Retreat, leading to a psychotic break. Haunted by guilt over his bioweapons work, possibly involving anthrax tests on unwitting subjects in Korea, Olson wanted out, becoming a liability. In an unprecedented move, President Gerald Ford personally apologized to the Olson family at the White House in 1975, a solemn acknowledgement of government responsibility, accompanied by a $750,000 settlement. But for Eric Olson, Frank's son, who had been 9 at the time of his father's death, money could never buy justice. Driven by an unyielding quest for truth, Eric spent decades investigating, culminating in a profound decision in 1994 to exhume his father's grave in Frederick, Maryland. The findings of the second autopsy, conducted by forensic pathologist James Starrs, were nothing short of shocking. Frank Olson's skull bore a significant blunt force fracture in the frontal region, an injury sustained before his fatal fall from the hotel window. This discovery blew open the official narrative, painting a far more sinister picture. It suggested Frank Olson didn't jump in a hallucinatory suicide. He was likely struck unconscious, perhaps with a blackjack by Lashbrook or another agent, and then thrown from the window, silenced because he knew too much about MK-Ultra and bioweapons and sought to sever ties with the CIA. His death transitioned from a suspected suicide to a chilling case of murder, possibly covered up at the highest levels. Yet, justice remained elusive. Key witnesses like Lashbrook had died or refused to testify. Crucial files had vanished in flames. The Olson family sued the CIA again in 2012, but the case was dismissed on technicalities. The truth, tragically, was buried beneath the cold concrete of a New York sidewalk, lost to history. As for Sidney Gottlieb, the architect of these dark experiments, he never faced justice. He lived out his days undisturbed in Virginia, passing away peacefully in 1999 at age 80. In a final, chilling interview before his death, Gottlieb claimed to be a victim himself, asserting he merely undertook necessary actions to safeguard the nation during the Cold War. "We were in a survival mode," he said, a cold, unrepentant defense from a man who had authorized countless atrocities, all in the name of patriotism. Though Project MK-Ultra officially ended in 1973, its disturbing legacy continues to echo, particularly in the unpunished lives of its perpetrators and the silence of the justice system that failed to hold them accountable. To fully understand the program's downfall, we must add Chapter 6, Legacy and Shadows, the Unhealed Wounds. After over 2 decades of illicit experimentation, squandering an estimated $10-25 million and shattering thousands of lives across at least 44 colleges and 12 hospitals, the CIA's grand ambition to control the mind ended in abject failure. They did not create super spies or programmed assassins like the fictional Manchurian Candidate. Instead, their only perverse success was the destruction of countless human minds and the inadvertent popularization of LSD, which leaked into counterculture through figures like Harvard's Timothy Leary, a former MK-Ultra researcher who advocated turn on, tune in, drop out, fueling the 1960s hippie movement. Legal repercussions were minimal. In 1988, 9 Canadian victims of Cameron's experiments, including Val Orlikow, won a $750,000 settlement from the CIA after a class action lawsuit, but many others received nothing. The National Research Act of 1974 established institutional review boards to prevent non-consensual experiments, but loopholes remain. MK-Ultra's enduring lesson is not in any scientific breakthrough. LSD is now studied for therapeutic uses like treating PTSD, but in its stark revelation of humanity's ethical precipice. It demonstrates how, when fear reigns and national security trumps human rights, even the most civilized and intellectual individuals can transform into the most brutal monsters. The program drew from Nazi experiments acquired via Operation Paperclip, where German scientists like Kurt Blohm were recruited, perpetuating a cycle of horror. Today, MK-Ultra fuels conspiracy theories. from QAnon claims of government mind control to suspicions about modern tech like social media algorithms or microchips. Its D.I.San appears in pop culture. Netflix's Wormwood documentary on Olson, films like The Men Who Stare at Goats, and books like Poisoner in Chief by Stephen Kinzer. But the real victims, the nameless individuals in mental institutions, unwitting soldiers and unsuspecting students, their suffering remains a haunting testament to this dark chapter, a warning that the quest for control can corrupt absolutely. These heavy files, these silent witnesses to a dark era, now give way as the clock ticks past midnight. What belongs to history, let it be returned to history. As we close these chapters, remember where you are, safe in your own room. There are no two-way mirrors here. No one is watching you. Your mind is your own and only yours. Take a deep, calming breath and exhale slowly. Let the tensions, anxieties, and shadows of conspiracy dissolve into the fading night. If strange dreams visit you, do not fear them. They are merely your brain's way of clearing memories, a natural healing process gifted by nature, requiring no external intervention. Thank you for your courage in stepping with me into the darkness, seeking the light of truth. I am the Archivist, and this has been the Midnight Archive.